I watched him creep behind me for 3 blocks, phone in hand, rage in his eyes. This rich man thought he knew my story, thought I was trash stealing from his building. But when he followed me into that alley, what he found broke something in him that money could never fix. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story will shake you to your core, challenge everything you think you know about judging people by their appearance. Stay until the very end. The truth will leave you speechless. My name is Dorothy, and I'm 68 years old. For 40 years, I raised other people's children. I wiped tears, packed lunches, taught first words, celebrated first steps. I poured everything I had into babies who would grow up and forget my name. That's the truth about being a nanny. You give your whole heart knowing you're always temporary. You're never really family, no matter how much you love them or how much they say they love you back. That Tuesday in October was supposed to be my last day. The Harrison family was moving to California, and little Jake, the boy I'd raised since he was 6 weeks old, was leaving with them. Mrs. Harrison cried when she hugged me goodbye. She pressed an envelope into my hand, my final paycheck and a small bonus that I knew wouldn't last long. She promised we'd stay in touch. We both knew we wouldn't. That's how these things go. I smiled, kissed Jake's forehead one last time, and walked out of that luxury apartment on the 15th floor, carrying 2 worn shopping bags with my sweater, my house slippers, and some leftover food the Harrisons told me to take. The service elevator smelled like cleaning solution and old metal. I caught my reflection in the scratched doors, an old black woman in a faded coat carrying bags that had seen better days. Invisible. That's what people like me are in buildings like that. We come in through the back, work in the shadows, and leave without anyone noticing. 40 years, and I could count on one hand how many residents actually knew my name. When I stepped out into the cold October air, I didn't notice him at first. Lawrence Grant. I'd seen him in passing over the years. You couldn't miss him. Tall, sharp suits, that walk that wealthy men have, like they own the ground beneath their feet, because in his case, he did. He owned half that building and a dozen others across the city. Real estate empire built from nothing, or so the doorman said. Self-made billionaire, the kind of man who didn't see people like me. But that evening, he saw me. And what he saw made him angry. I was halfway down the block when I felt it. That prickle on the back of your neck when you know you're being watched. I glanced over my shoulder, and there he was, 20 feet back, phone out, pointing it at me. My stomach dropped. In this world, when a rich white man follows an old black woman with his camera out, nothing good comes next. I walked faster. My knees ached. They always do when the weather turns cold, but fear has a way of making you forget pain. He kept following. I could hear his expensive shoes on the sidewalk behind me. 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might give out right there. What did he think I'd done? What did he think was in these bags? Old Tupperware and a cardigan didn't seem worth chasing someone for, but I've learned that some people see what they want to see. They look at your skin, your worn-out coat, your tired face, and they write a whole story about who you are, a story where you're always the villain. I couldn't go home. Not with him following me. I couldn't let him see where I lived, a tiny room in a boarding house, barely big enough for a bed and a hot plate. So I did what I'd been doing every evening for 3 months. I turned down the alley between 5th and Harrison Street, the narrow one most people don't even notice, the one that smells like garbage and broken dreams. Behind me, I heard him speed up. He thought he had me cornered. I could feel his triumph, his self-righteousness. He probably had the police already dialed on his phone. Another theft stopped. Another criminal caught. He'd sleep well tonight, knowing he'd protected his property. But he didn't know. He couldn't have known. I walked past the first dumpster, then the second, back to where the alley opens into a small space that the sun never reaches. My hands were shaking as I set down my bags, and then I heard them before I saw them, the soft shuffle of movement, the little cough that had been getting worse. "Nana Dorothy?" The voice was small and scared. "It's me, baby. It's okay. I brought food." That's when Lawrence Grant rounded the corner, phone up, mouth open, ready to shout accusations. And that's when his whole world stopped. 3 children sat huddled in a nest of blankets and cardboard. Grace was 7, small for her age, with big brown eyes that had seen too much. Tommy was 9, trying so hard to be brave, his arm protective around his little sister, and Angela was 11, the oldest, the one who remembered everything about before, about when they had a mother, a home, a life that made sense. Lawrence froze. His phone dropped to his side. I watched his face go through every emotion: shock, confusion, horror, shame. But I didn't have time for his feelings. I had 3 hungry children waiting. I opened my bags and started unpacking. A container of pasta the Harrisons hadn't finished, 2 sandwiches I'd made from lunch meat that would have gone bad, 3 juice boxes, a bunch of bananas. It wasn't much. It was never much. But their faces lit up like I'd brought them a feast. "You've been giving them your food," Lawrence whispered. It wasn't a question. Not just mine. Whatever I could save, whatever I could spare. "You gonna call the police on me for that?" He didn't answer. He just stood there, this billionaire in his $1,000 suit, watching me tend to 3 homeless children in a dirty alley. I pulled out the bottle of cough medicine I'd bought with the last bit of my previous paycheck. Grace's cough had been getting worse, and I'd been terrified it would turn into something I couldn't fix with drugstore medicine. "Open up, baby girl," I said softly, measuring out the dose. She took it without complaint, then curled back into the blankets. Tommy was already eating, trying not to devour everything too fast. Angela just watched Lawrence with suspicious eyes. "How long?" he asked. 3 months. Found them here late July. Their mama died. Overdose. No family. No one to take them. They were hiding because they were scared." "Scared of what?" "Scared of being split up. Scared of the system. Angela told me they'd been in foster care before, when their mama was using real bad. They got separated then. Different homes. Didn't see each other for 8 months. When they finally got back together, Angela made Tommy and Grace promise, no matter what, they'd never let anyone separate them again." My voice cracked on that last part. I'd spent 3 months trying to find help, trying to work within a system that was overwhelmed and understaffed. Social workers who cared but had too many cases, shelters that were full, programs with waiting lists a year long, and these 3 babies, sleeping in an alley because they loved each other too much to let the system tear them apart. Lawrence was crying, actually crying, tears running down his face, not bothering to wipe them away. "Why didn't you take them home? You think I didn't want to? You think I didn't lie awake every night thinking about them out here in the cold? I live in 1 room, Mr. Grant. 1 room barely big enough for me, no kitchen except a hot plate, bathroom down the hall I share with 5 other people. Landlord has a strict policy, no children, no guests." I begged him, offered him every penny I had. He said no, said if I broke the rules he'd evict me, and then where would I be? Can't help these babies if I'm on the street too. Tommy had stopped eating and was staring at us. "Nana Dorothy comes every day," he said quietly. "Even when it rains, even when she's sick. She always comes. Twice a day when I can," I added. "Morning before work, evening after. Brought them blankets, pillows, warm clothes. Been teaching them reading and math so they don't fall behind. Grace is learning her multiplication tables. Angela's reading at 8th grade level. They're smart, these babies. They deserve so much more than this." Lawrence crouched down, bringing himself to the children's level, his expensive pants pressed into the dirty ground, and he didn't even notice. "What's your name?" he asked Grace. She looked at me for permission. I nodded. "Grace Michelle Turner. I'm 7 3/4. That's my brother Tommy, and that's my sister Angela. We stay together. That's the rule." "I had a rule like that once," Lawrence said, his voice rough. "I had a brother and a sister too. When I was 8, our parents died. Car accident. We went into foster care and they promised we'd stay together." He had to stop, had to breathe. The children watched him with wide eyes. They lied. First week, my sister went to one home. Month later, my brother went to another. I never saw them again. I've spent millions trying to find them. Hired investigators, searched records, posted everywhere online. It's been 50 years. They could be anywhere. Could be dead. I'll never know. That hole in my heart where they used to be, it never healed. All the money in the world couldn't fix it. Angela spoke up then, her voice hard with survivor's wisdom. That's why we hide. That's why we didn't go to no social worker. They say nice things, but they lie. They split people up. Not all of them, Lawrence said. Some of them really do care. Some of them fight hard to keep families together. But you're right, the system is broken. It fails kids every single day. He stood up and looked at me. Really looked at me. Not through me, not past me, but at me. I followed you because I thought you were stealing. I saw an old woman with shopping bags leaving through the service entrance, and I assumed the worst. I made up a whole story in my head about who you were. I was going to have you arrested. I know, I said simply. That's what people like you always think about people like me. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. He pulled out his phone, but this time his hands were gentle, purposeful. I'm calling my lawyer. Right now. We're getting emergency housing for these children. Tonight. Then we're filing for emergency guardianship. They're not spending another night in this alley. They have to stay together, I said firmly. That's not negotiable. They'll stay together, I promise you. On my life, on my own lost family, I promise they will not be separated. He made call after call. I watched this billionaire, this man who'd followed me with hate in his eyes, transform into something else. Someone else. He called lawyers, judges, social workers, doctors. He used every connection, every ounce of power and privilege, not to hurt someone this time, but to help. He took off his coat, probably cost more than I made in 6 months, and wrapped it around Tommy's shoulders. Within 2 hours, a social worker arrived, not the overworked, exhausted kind I'd met before, but someone from a private agency, someone Lawrence had on speed dial. There was paperwork, questions, assessments. The children clung to me, terrified this was it. This was when they'd be ripped apart. Lawrence knelt down again. I know you don't know me. I know I'm just some stranger who showed up in your alley, but I meant what I said. I lost my family because the system didn't care enough to keep us together. I won't let that happen to you. You're going to a temporary apartment tonight, all 3 of you with Nana Dorothy. Tomorrow, we start the real work. But I give you my word as someone who knows exactly what you're afraid of, you will stay together. Grace looked up at me. Is he telling the truth, Nana Dorothy? I looked into Lawrence Grant's eyes and saw something I hadn't seen before. I saw a little boy who'd lost everything. I saw someone who understood. Yes, baby. I think he is. That night, we slept in a furnished apartment in one of Lawrence's buildings. 3 bedrooms, a full kitchen, heat that actually worked. The children took baths, real baths with hot water and soap that smelled like lavender. I made them scrambled eggs and toast, and we sat at an actual table like a real family. Lawrence stayed until they fell asleep, watching from the doorway like he couldn't believe it was real. Thank you, he said to me as he was leaving. Thank you for showing me what I'd become, what I'd stopped seeing. Thank you for following me, I said, and I meant it. That was 6 weeks ago. The children are still together. Lawrence is going through the process to become their legal guardian. It's complicated, it's slow, but he's fighting for them the way someone should have fought for him 50 years ago. He hired me as their full-time caregiver with a real salary, health insurance, everything I never had in 40 years of raising other people's children. But more than that, he changed, started a foundation for hidden homeless children, the ones everyone walks past, funded programs to keep siblings together, used his money, his power, his connections for something that mattered. He tells me I saved him, but the truth is, we saved each other. I think about that day often, how judgment almost destroyed everything, how easy it is to look at someone and see only what we expect to see. I was invisible until I wasn't. I was worthless until someone looked closer. Grace starts real school next week. Tommy wants to play basketball. Angela's writing poetry about everything they've been through. They call me Nana Dorothy, and now it's official. Now I have the papers that say these are my children to raise, to love, to keep. I'm 68 years old, and for the first time in my life, I'm not temporary. I'm not invisible. I'm not just the help. I'm family. And it all started because a billionaire followed an old black nanny into an alley, ready to accuse her of stealing. Instead, he found his heart. Sometimes the people we judge the hardest are the ones who end up saving us. Sometimes being followed leads you exactly where you need to be. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll past. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and tell me in the comments, have you ever judged someone without knowing their story? Subscribe to this channel for more true stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Remember, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Choose kindness. Choose to see people. I'm Dorothy, and thank you for listening to my truth.